Hello and thank you for joining us on Newsweek, where we highlight some of the biggest stories that made the headlines recently. I am Mark Otabo. This week marked President Bola Tinubu's 1 year in office, and on this episode, we'll take a look at social welfare, security and infrastructure under the Renewed Hope administration. Also, we'll explore the progress made so far in the energy sector, fuel supply, and the federal government's CNG policy. And later on the show, we'll talk about planned efforts by President Bola Tinubu to attract global investment and restore national pride. All the details in a moment. Stay with us. In the last 1 year, President Tinubu's administration prioritized social welfare programs to improve the lives of citizens, from launching various initiatives in education, poverty alleviation and healthcare, to police reforms, counter-terrorism and border security. The Renewed Hope administration has been deliberate in governance. Nigeria in the last 1 year has also witnessed significant investment in infrastructure. And of course, to discuss this with us is Ibrahim Garba, a communications consultant, right here with us. Ibrahim, good to have you on the show this evening.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, let's go straight to business. Now, Nigeria has actually grappled with insecurity for quite a number of years. But how would you assess President Tinubu's mode of addressing this in his 1 year in office?
Well, thank you very much once again. To start with, let me tell you this, Otabo, that Mr. President came in with a master plan, which is built on a tripods, that is providing good governance, then ease of doing business, then rule of law. Whichever way you look at it, we are giving you the opportunity to see clearly the policy direction of Mr. President. Now, in terms of providing good governance, just like you pointed out, that he inherited some of the challenges concerning insecurity. So bringing in an experienced personnel like NSC, Nuhu Ribadu, and the service chiefs change the narratives. And it's evident from what you are seeing today across the nation, especially in, crisis-prone areas around Zamfara, Katsina, and some other places. And you and I can testify that the level of insecurity continued to, drop over the years. And as I'm talking to you after 1 year, it is clear for all to see that we have done so well, very well, in terms of insecurity. Now, I mentioned something again about the ease of doing business. You see the situation right now when he came in to office, especially the first statement he made that the fuel subsidy is gone. And Nigerians begin to ask, why remove the fuel subsidy? He knew the level of corruption that existed within the subsidy arena. So removing this fuel subsidy, saving money for project and infrastructure has begun to yield dividends. You now talk about the Lagos, Calabar, Costa Rica, rail line and all that. Then you talk about the infrastructural development in Abuja, other major cities across the nation. This is as a result of the fallout of the savings we got from the fuel subsidy. And yes, definitely it bites harder on, and Nigerians are feeling the pangs of this. But again, if you are going to carry out fundamental reforms, definitely people will feel the pains at the beginning, but in the middle and going forward, Nigerians are going to smile. And he has given up, he has given us the impression right from the first day he came into office by saying there's a renewed hope agenda. And in doing so, all hands must be on deck. He cannot do it alone. He needs the support of the ministers. He needs the support of the, governors and major critical stakeholders, especially those in the private sector. So I think Nigeria, we're doing well in that area. Then I also mentioned the rule of law, which is paramount. We have so many cases, surrounding, fundamental rights of citizens being abused. Yes, the court is now an environment where you can seek redress. And the court, as far as I'm concerned, they are doing well by operating independently. So and Nigerians are beginning to see the impact of that. And that is why recently I would like to commend Mr.
Okay, Mr. Ibrahim.
To take the governors, to court concerning the local government autonomy. So you can see that I think at this point in time, after 1 year, we can be glad to say Nigeria is a work in progress.
Okay, Mr. Ibrahim, very quickly, we might have to just be very cautious because we don't have the luxury of time. So maybe you might want to be a bit economical with your reservations. Now, the renewed hope agenda of President Bola Tinubu's administration has actually witnessed policy intervention across board. Now, how would you rate his commitment towards improving the welfare of Nigerians quickly?
Yeah, no, well, it's there now. We are seeing it, especially with the introduction of the student loan scheme, which has taken effect. The very first day it was launched, we have so many students who, registered, and they are going to access these opportunities. And especially those now in the undergraduates. At the same time, you can see across board, you are talking about each programs he has in place to ease, tension on Nigerians, especially in terms of transportation and all that. All these things require patience. And the Nigerians should not be quick to begin to think twice, especially those in the opposition, castigating that is performing below expectation. Well, this is something that has been there for over the years, more than 10 years, is trying to build on. And the onus is on us as citizens to believe in this man because he has a vision to turn these things around in this country. So, and the only way we can achieve that is by doing our part. Most times Nigeria think about what the country can do for them. We should be thinking about what we as citizens should do for our country. So I give him a pass mark, a very good pass mark on that, on what we have seen so far.
All right, thank you very much. Well, I've got Mr. Nelson Ekujimi, a political analyst right here in the studio with me. Mr. Nelson, very quickly, one of President Bola Tinubu's 8-point agenda, right, is to ensure infrastructural development across the country with the commissioning of several projects by the president. Now, what should we be expecting in the nearest future? Quickly.
Well, thank you very much. We can see that the previous administration embarked on massive infrastructural renewal in Nigeria, and President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, inheriting that from his predecessor, has not gone back at all. He has continued to move forward. Like the other guest rightly said, we can see the Lagos-Calabar coastal highway. We can see the redesign of the Lagos-Sokoto highway. We can see the Port Harcourt Abia rail services now up and running. We can see the infrastructure that were commissioned in Abuja just recently. So by and large, you can be rest assured that this is a president who knows the impact of infrastructure on any economy.
Right.
And he has told us, and we have seen actions in that regard, that is massively committed to doing that. Okay. That is the only way to change Nigeria for good. All
right, now we have to take a time out now. And of course, Newsweek continues in a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back. Upon inauguration, President Tinubu's administration aimed to rationalize subsidies and ensure efficient use of resources while expanding compressed natural gas (CNG) stations for cleaner transportation. The renewed hope is to continue to promote alternative energy sources to reduce reliance on oil. Now, joining me to discuss this is Tosin Thompson. He's the CEO of Mesovest and a policy analyst as well. Mr. Tosin, good to have you on the show this evening.
Good evening. Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. Now, the removal of petrol subsidy was a bold move by this administration. Now, efforts are also being made to revitalizing moribund refineries in the country. Now, how has these decisions impacted growth in the scheme of things?
Well, I mean, just to start off and to answer your latter question, impacting growth is going to take some time. There's some foundational infrastructure investments that have to take place. Therefore, infrastructure investments in terms of distribution that have to take place as well. And so I'll rely on Nigerians to be a little bit patient in adopting this alternative use of fuel. Now, you mentioned in introducing this question that the president, His Excellency, made a bold move. Indeed, it is a bold move. And it's very commendable because we have leadership that is addressing the core issues that we have on unreliable distribution that could also affect both power and other sources or other uses of the fuels that we use. So having a leadership that is addressing that foundational issue by itself is a welcome play and a welcome agenda. Now, the next question is in terms of execution, right? The president, through the PCNG, the Presidential CNG Committee, and in partnership with private companies like myself, is working to execute and implement those infrastructure with regards to CNG as an alternative to petrol. Example is, the mother station. I was just in a commissioning of a mother station in Lasamaja in Lagos. And I know for a fact that the PCNG and even NNPC is partnering with private companies to set up multiple mother stations, which are compression plants that annex the pipelines to compress natural gas and produce CNG. Those are key infrastructure developments that need to take place. And it's actually good to see that the government is pushing this initiative not to take the place of the private companies, but actually help and support demand stimulation, right? So that they can ease the use and the adoption of this alternative fuel. Now, a key thing that I should mention is that the government faced a real issue of subsidies. I know it's a very controversial topic when we say subsidies in the petroleum sector, subsidies in the electricity sector, because Nigeria, there's a lot of economic hardship. So any way the government could help was always welcome. But we got to a point where subsidies were actually not affordable by the country. We have to have this hard conversation. So for His Excellency to make that unpopular and bold commitment to stop subsidies, which was actually needed, right? Because the government, those subsidies were funded from somewhere. Now we can go into the politics and say, oh, what happened to the funds and why weren't we able to carry these subsidies? That's a different political conversation. But in terms of implementation, we were where we are, which is the government could not just afford subsidies.
All right.
Subsidies in fuel. So that is taken, CNG takes its place. Let's put the infrastructure together for the distribution of that CNG.
All right, Mr. Toz, very quickly. Well, in relation to that, let's assess President Tinubu's adoption of the CNG as alternative to fuel. Now, in what ways do you think this intervention has aligned with global efforts to combat climate change and cleaner energy solution? Can you just try to make it brief, because we don't have the luxury of time, actually.
Okay, so very briefly, so there's been this battle between use of fossil fuels and use of pure renewables. Unfortunately, Nigeria and in fact, the globe is not ready for full renewables. It's not just economical, in my opinion. It will take some time. We'll get there. That's a holy grail. So we have to look at CNG and other gas-based, cleaner-based fossil fuels as a transition from the dirtier fuels like the kerosene and the diesels to the holy grail, which is renewables. Right now, Nigeria has the abundance of gas, which is a cleaner form for energy generation and for fuel for automobiles. Right? Why don't we focus on that, which is what the president is doing? Focus on our abundant resource. There is a cleaner alternative to the AGOs. There's cleaner alternatives to the kerosene. A cleaner alternative to the burning of forest and deforestation. So in terms of the global climate initiative, I think we are on the right path.
Okay.
What we could do is double down on it, set up the infrastructure for the transition, and then we'll now go into full renewable.
All right,
but it should be powered by the transition.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, Ibrahim Garba, I know you're still very much there. Quickly, now, the rural electrification, domestic manufacturing of prepaid meter, putting an end to estimated billing, among others, are some of the goals of Mr. President in the power sector. Now, how close are we to attaining these objectives?
Well, these are areas that need more, education, because we are looking at reaching out to the grassroots, and there's a need for us to improve on electricity distribution. And I like what is happening right now at the REA, Rural Electrification Agency. So, people accessing these prepaid meters will help us to manage and streamline the distribution, power distribution and all that. So it's a win-win situation for us. If you don't have, or those in the local areas don't have access to electricity, you see migration to the cities because they want to improve their lifestyle and at the same time embark on businesses. But whereas they have access to this electricity, some of these small businesses can thrive at the local level and you decongest the city center. So I think It's a wise decision for us now to begin to invest more in rural electrification so that we can ease tension across all these areas.
Thank you very much. Now, Mr. Nelson, very quickly, now, what would be your advice to this administration and what for them to do differently when it comes to the matters of the power sector? What's your...
Well, the administration, like we all know, inherited a power sector that has been privatized. And if you have listened to the Minister for Power, you recognize that the greatest challenge that industry has is liquidity. Yeah. And that is why, the discos are even struggling. And that is why you can see that the government at some point in time had to come in with loans to the discos. And because they could not fulfill their obligations, the CBN had to take over the running of some of the discos. So there's no two ways about it, right. That we need more liquidity in the system. We need to interrogate the process that bets the privatization exercise in order to ensure that those who are up and running are given the pass mark, but those who are lacking and who don't have the capacity, to carry themselves, to meet our aspirations, are shown the exit door.
All right. Thank you very much. All right, now moving on to the very last subject matter of the day. President Tinubu's first year in office was marked by ambitious efforts to position Nigeria as an attractive investment destination. As Chief Marketing Officer, President Tinubu has been all about strengthening ties with other nations to boost Nigeria's global standing while taking measures to restore national pride by every means possible. Now, of course, Nelson Akujimi is still right here with me, political analyst. And very quickly, Nelson, let's start off with the return to the old national anthem. Yeah. Now, what is the implication of this change on our national identity?
Well, the implication of the new national anthem is that it resonates with the patriotism and nationalism spirit in the Nigerian. The new national anthem, even if I don't know how old you are, but when I was in primary school, when we were singing that national anthem, we were almost dancing. Okay. Because it had a melodious tune, Yeah. So, and if you look at the lines there, it tells you that though tribe and tongue differ, yeah, united, So it's an anthem that speaks, to our nationality as a people bounded by one destiny.
All right. Now, quickly, let's get to hear from Tosin. Tosin, very quickly. Now, staring us in the face are issues of national unity and integration. It's been 1 year coming. Now, how best do you think the government can wade into issues that threaten our national identity?
So I'll talk about it from an economic perspective. Okay. The truth is, there's a lot of hardship out there. There's inflation, food costs are high. Before we talk about unity, let's talk about survival. Let's iron that out first, and everybody comes together. We can come up with programs to bring the country together. But in terms of survival, the road forward is clear. How can we bring the cost of food down? How can we bring the cost of living down? How can we increase wages? So a lot of these foundational policies that are put in place is the path towards that. I'm going to go back to the implementation of CNG as an alternative as an example. Let's think about the thought process of that. Let's reduce the cost. Let's hone in on a reduced cost of fuel that is essential for manufacturing, that is essential for food production, and is essential for transportation as well. Once we solve that issue of survival, which will take time, unfortunately, and it's very important that the government also pushes this message of understanding, which I think they're doing okay with, right? Understanding that the impatience coming from the populace is not from a place of just a populace that is not unified, but a populace that actually wants to survive, that is facing a lot of hardship. So sequentially, once we solve these economical problems first, bring down the cost of food, make the naira stable against the dollar, against globally priced commodities, make it easier make the standard of living higher for Nigeria in terms of food, transportation, housing. And then you see Nigerians are very patriotic. Nigerians are actually easy to govern. Look at what we've gone through for all these years, and all these years that the government has taken over from past administrations, and I'm not going to be political. But this is going to be a hard line that we all have to go through, unfortunately. Think about it as a wound that's been covered with Band-Aids, but the wound hasn't been healed. That Band-Aid has to be ripped, and that process of ripping is painful. But once that is done, this foundational policies is going to the core of what needs to be done for economical stability of the country.
Thank you very much.
All
right, Mr. Nelson, very quickly, where he has highlighted quite a number of issues, and he felt for also actually talk about unity first, you have to make the lives of Nigerians quite easy. But let me come to you on this very subject. What incentives can the government leverage upon in its bid to woo foreign investors? Because we need that money.
Well, to woo foreign investors, there must be consistency in policies.
Right.
And we have seen it being done by this administration, that Mr. President has become the chief salesman of the country. He has assured investors, even it had taken him, it had taken him to make personal, visits to convince them that, look, come and do business in Nigeria. Your money is safe. You can repatriate. And we have seen it even with the imminent return of Emirates Airline and some other businesses that are coming in. So the wooing foreign investors is about the international community looking at your commitment and the laws you have in place. And I'm very optimistic that this government is not lacking in that direction. So in the days ahead, because you don't expect that you woo somebody. It's just like if you want to, marry a wife, or you want to talk to a lady to be your girlfriend. You don't talk to him on the one and expect it. He will tell you, let me go and think about it. Right. You use it to assess it.
All right, Ibrahim Garba, before we finally go, I just have this very question for you. Right now, Nigerians are complaining on different levels, especially with the everyday living. Some are complaining about the price of pepper, tomatoes in the market and all of that. What do you think the government can do for a quick fix to actually try and rectify this problem? At least if Nigerians can get to have their everyday needs solved, I think to a large extent, whatever policy being planned, they would actually hold on with it. What do you think the government can do right now quickly to fix that scarcity that we're experiencing right now?
I think there are two things here. We should improve on insecurity and at the same time support the farmers, because these are the people that produce the yields. If they are not safe on their farms, there's no way they can go on to farm, because we need this produce. And at the same time, we should create competition. I just heard recently some companies are relocating and all that. It's not my business. No, it shouldn't worry us, because when there's competition, definitely those that cannot stand it will run out. So that is the real deal. We should invest more on insecurity and at the same time support our farmers. That's just the way out.
Nelson, very quickly,
yes,
10 seconds.
I think it is important for us to ask for a synergy between the state government, because the states own lands. The government does not have land anywhere where she farms.
Right.
The state owns the land. The state knows the farmers more. If the federal government wants to give any intervention, it will be through the state governments and the supporting agencies in the agricultural chain. So it is important for us to ask our state governments, what are they doing to bring down the cost of living, the cost of basic foodstuffs?
All right.
It's important.
Thank you very much. Well, I've been speaking with, of course, Ibrahim Garba. He's a very fantastic individual. Of course, Tosin Thompson as well, the CEO of Mesovest. And I've also been right here in the studio with me is Nelson Ekujimi, a political analyst. And that's our show for today. Remember, you can follow the conversation on our social media platforms at TVC News NG or on our website at tvcnews.tv. I am Marco Tabo. Until next week, goodbye.